Hello everyone, this is Tim, and this is going to be the last summary of the Welcome to Pembrooktonshire videos. And it's not because the campaign's ending, it's just because they left the town. And, I'm sort of, oh crap, I kind of had this idea that this town was going to be the center point of the entire campaign. And though the players had, said through their characters a lot, let's burn this place down and leave, let's get out of here. Every time they'd say that, I'd be like, oh, please don't leave, please don't leave, ah! And I really can't blame them, though, because the town really is filled full of despicable, terrible examples of humans, but as they learned in the campaign, well, they're not humans for the most part, so there's some sort of strange hybrid between creatures of the outer dark and they're wearing human skins, basically. So, yeah, they eventually, they're going to leave after this session, so I'll just start back. The other Tim, he goes on YouTube, is playing a character named Sergey, and he has a very great Russian accent when he plays, and I can't pull off accents the way that Tim does, so I was very impressed with him. But his character came into the town, and the first person he met was this strange old man from canes, crutches, and walking sticks. And he was sort of staring at this big pile of, all the sticks and things that he was selling, and he looked confused. And he asked him to pick one, and he picked this one that had this old, grizzled dog's head on top of it. And then he suggested, do you want me to pick one out for you, old man? Who turned out to be Abraham, that was the guy's name. And he picked out this, burnt, well-worn stick that was actually... this man was freaked out. He said it was cursed. Why on earth would you pick that stick? And he was screaming and crawling on the ground away from him, cursing Sergey. Curse you, leave me. All this crazy stuff. And I was trying to pull off my old man accent, and I don't know. I had fun with it. I think it was a good introduction for Tim for the campaign because I could tell he was chuckling. He thought it was kind of funny. But Sergey continued on, and he saw the aftermath of Alex's solo adventure, which was last session. And in the center of the town, there was people all over the place bleeding and having drag marks and big lashes and cuts all over them from being tortured and tied up to the byre in the center of the town. There was that large crack in the center of it. There was blood all over them and all over the place. And he was walking through this chaos of these people trying to figure out what to do, and the militia was nowhere to be found. The spirit knights that had come through town and done all this were freaked out and sent on their way by Alex's character. I can never remember his damn name. But he was possessing a raven at the time, and he was speaking with his own voice, and it freaked out the spirit knights. So there was discarded whips and torture devices, and he's walking through this, and lo and behold, he sees his old friends that they had adventured with together. He saw his old friends basically standing in front of the jail / courthouse / all kinds of stuff. It's basically the government building of the town. But before that, in the mayor's room, Ramalzi and Rayhan were discussing what to do, talking about all the various things that were coming down on the town, the portals that were beneath it, the fruit creatures and the trees that were encroaching upon the town slowly. Mal the cleric was there, but Keith wasn't able to play, so I was just having him kind of be there, but silent for the most part. It's always kind of weird to have NPCs in the party, so I try to do that as little as possible. But, I try to keep it so it seems like the guy's actually there. When the group went down and they saw all this chaos that they didn't know what was going on because they were up in the mayor's room for so long, they saw Sergey, and Rayhan saw this blood streak in the hallway, which was actually Alex's character that had ran off. I don't even know where the blood came from, to be honest. It just popped in my head and I said it, so... maybe Alex's character is going to have bleeding hands in the next session, just to sort of make up for that. We'll see how that works out. Some sort of strange after effect of being possessed by the old gypsy woman. So, there was all this chaos going on, and then the angelic sword that Ramalzi had was giving off that strong emotional wave of energy, of peace, tranquility, holiness, etc. And the blade was visible, which is a very sure sign that demonic children are present, or are going to be there quickly. You know, they're coming, they're encroaching upon them. And sure enough, these two farm boys, the ones that they had seen from before, that were hanging out with the old mayor, were traveling right into the town center, and they were each carrying one side of this large, black, metallic box that had all kinds of angular designs or pieces to it. It was hard to tell from this far away, but in addition to that, Ramelzi also noticed that small gypsy horse that Alex's character had touched, and that's when the gypsy woman had possessed him. So, Sergei, just walking the town, seeing all this stuff being thrown into the midst of all this chaos and consequence from, you know, all the previous adventures, just kept saying that they they needed to burn this place down and kill everyone in it. He'd already had a bad vibe from the town. In addition to that, this wave of vile, putrid energy was pulsing out from the box, or, you know, the demonic children, they couldn't tell at the time, these farm boys. And they seem to have a confidence and a brash nature about them, walking right into the middle of town with this thing, almost like they thought no one was going to stop them. At this point, the people that were, you know, had been tortured by the spirit knights had got up and dragged themselves off and were heading in the opposite direction, trying to run away from this strange feeling that they were having, this hideous box. Sergei wasn't really sure what to think of his associates and what was going on, but he was there to support them. You know, his old friends had been here, so he wanted to help them out. They seemed to be heading right towards that crack in the center of town, and at this point, Rayhan decided that he is going to sort of skirt around them and try to get from behind them and try to stab them with that angelic sword. Ramelzi had handed it off again. And it's kind of funny, the whole time in this campaign, I was expecting the wizard, Ramelzi, to try to use the sword, and he just always handed it off to Rayhan. Now, Rayhan's a lot better with it, but I kind of thought that might happen, but it just didn't. This is when the black angular box started to fall into hundreds and thousands of sharp metal parts of various angles, like triangles and trapezoids and so forth. At this point, Rayhan ran up from behind them and stabbed one of them in the back with the angelic sword. Now, in the past, whenever he'd done this, all the creatures had just pretty much died on the spot, like almost instantly. But this time, it left a gaping wound that slowly was eating away at them. It seemed like whatever these things were, they had more like concentrated evil to them. And he felt this spiritual war of powers. The angelic sword and the power of this box and the creatures. You know, maybe that box was the reason they didn't evaporate instantly when they were stabbed by this thing. And later that sword would help them as well, because they started to have to make saving throws for this strange spell-like effect, this vile, putrid, oily feeling presence that was emanating from the box. This is when Ramelzi cast a hold person spell, and these spectral worms flew out of his hands and flew into the body of one of these farm boys that were possessed with this demonic energy. And it started just writhing in their nose and their mouth and keeping them in place. And Sergei ran up, tried to attack, and at this point, Mallow started casting a spell on his cat of nine tails, making it some sort of holy weapon. So in the end, one of the arms of one of these things got ripped off by Mallow's cat of nine tails. The other one was held in place by Ramelzi, and they ended up killing another one with the angelic sword. So let's see what else happened here. The one that was left smashed down with both hands and made the box shatter into more pieces. And Sergei failed one of his saving throws and fell down into it. And he had this dream of this gray, vague background and these dark shadows that were moving between him and it. And they were moving in him and through him and crawling under his skin and tearing him, and sharp pains were happening. But he eventually broke out of that dream, because where he was flailing, the grayness became lighter and lighter. It was almost like he was crawling out of his dreamlike state. And one of them, these farm boys, grabbed up one of these just big piles of shards and shoved it right into Ramelzi's face. And Ramelzi could feel the shards trying to dig into his skin, get under his skin, And it was funny because Jeremiah says his first reaction was to do this, which actually shoved them further into his face. So, they ended up getting all the pieces out of his, out of his skin and so forth, so he didn't have any problems. But when Sergei woke up, there was a 2-inch slit on his stomach where one of these fragments of the box had wormed its way into him, into his core. And he felt this pressure, this movement inside his stomach that was just pushing outward. Something was growing within him. And as they were torturing this last one with the angelic sword, it was saying that Sergei was going to turn into one of them. As you are, so shall, as I am, so shall you be. I can't talk. So it seemed like he was turning into one of these demonic children from inside out. It felt like he was pregnant, and they didn't like the sound of that. Also, the sword, the wound that was there, was devouring it, the creature. So he was slowly dying and being tortured by it. But so I had to get to have a little bit of demonic voice fun in the campaign. I had a lot of fun with that. But they decided they were going to push the angelic sword into that 2-inch slit in Sergei's stomach, which was obviously painful, and it burned. It was like a searing pain. He was chugging like healing potions that Rayhan gave him that he guessed correctly. He's like, well, there's some black ones in here and some blue-green ones. I think the blue-green ones are good, and I think the black ones were poison from another encounter from before. So eventually they, by shoving this angelic light sword into Sergei's stomach, they killed and just removed that evil that was growing inside of him. Let's see here. Then the angelic creature showed up, who was this like naked boy with wings that were there sometimes and not other times. He basically said that it is finished. The blade shall be given to others who can use it to fight our mutual foes. And he said he'll take the shards with him. And then it opened up his mouth, and this sort of staticky voice came out, and all that big pile of shards that were there vanished. And in addition to that, there was a very subtle earthquake after it left. And they looked down in the crack, and the portals that were going to swallow up the town seemed to have been dispelled, probably by the angel, but they're not really sure why. Ramelzi was holding the gypsy horse after this point, and he heard a voice of an old gypsy woman saying, "It is finished." And this is actually the moment in the game, after I was listening to it, that I think I messed up. I think the characters thought that by hearing that, they thought, oh, okay, it's time to leave the town. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh no, I messed up. The voice was basically saying that the vengeance was taken care of by Alex's character, but Ramelzi would have no way of knowing that because he hasn't actually known that Alex's character is in the town yet. Tavis, I think his character's name is Tavis. I'm so bad with names sometimes. They wanted to find maps of the outside area since they got lost. It took them a whole month to get into the town. Everywhere they went, though, everyone was asleep. Constable was asleep, passed out on the stairs. The mayor was asleep with his pants off, because that was his way of doing it. The steward was asleep up there as well. And they rummaged through his stuff. They found some potions, and they realized that the mayor was conducting human trials on these potions without people knowing it. So they took that evidence and they put it into the constable's hands as they were leaving, because the constable was asleep on the stairs. They found some books from the old mayor in his safe. With one of the books was a book on gardening. It had a dagger that was in it. It looked like it was shoved in hastily. And there was 3 books from Trisha Finn, who was the midwife. And she is the reason that most of the people in town are no longer human. She actually took their skinned bodies down and gave them to the dragon turtle that the party, was able to get rid of because of those portals. They didn't see the dragon turtle down there in that cave when they looked in the crack. So, those of the Outer Dark are sort of like the old ones of the Cthulhu mythos, I guess, a little bit. Very dark and scary and unknowable. So, where did they go after that? They went to find the scribe because they thought they could find some maps, and they realized the scribe had gone completely apeshit crazy. There were piles of books with feces on them, and they were soaked in urine. The whole place just reeked. It looked like he had fallen asleep as he was pissing on a pile of books. So they dug around and learned that there was rumors that the town founder, with the last name of Pembroke, cast a powerful spell on the center of town. And that was the reason that everyone gets lost when they're coming to and from the town. You know, it doesn't really stop them from getting there, but it makes them take a lot longer to get there. Sort of a way to protect the town. Keep outsiders out. You know, they're very isolationist in Pembrooktonshire. So on the way out of the town, they realized that all the animals were asleep too, except for 3 cows, and they did not investigate those cows. They just said, you know what, we're just going to leave those 3 cows that are not sleeping alone. They did a lot of shopping. Time to shop, Since everyone was asleep, they just walked into all the businesses and grabbed some new armor, weapons, food, apples and apple cider, all this kind of stuff. And last but not least, they decided to go to the temple, because that's where they had taken Temper's child, and they also wanted to ring the bell to wake up the townsfolk. But Sergei said, let's not do that just yet. And Ramelzi suggested that he had a spell that could ring the bell as they were on the way out. But as they entered, there were all these offerings around the altar, and all of the emblems and iconography for the All, which is their monotheistic deity, were taken down. And these offerings around the altar were for that child, Temper's child. That's the character that Carl played in Natural 20 Films. And that child was, born by the witch. So the group figured that there was something different about this child, but it was a witch and a good man. That was the genes that it was made of, so maybe it'd be okay. And it seemed that with all the offerings around the child, it was just eating raisins and grapes and whatever it could get its hands on, so it didn't look like it was going to die or anything. So they left an awake infant child on an altar and just didn't decide to mess with it at all. They left the town. They rang the bell with Ramelzi's spell, and Sergei was just completely freaked out by all this. And the fact that this one little child was awake and everybody else was asleep just disturbed him. So they decided that they were going to go a different way. They weren't going to go the way they came into the town. They were going to go, I believe, southeast. I think that's where they decided to go. So now is the point in this campaign / new campaign where I have to do some prep work. Because all my prep work was all the NPCs in the town, all the weird stuff that was going on. And so yeah, I need to figure out something for this Saturday that's coming up. I do have some other modules and things that I'm thinking about using, along with a lot of improv, and I just have some other ideas from things that weren't finished in town that could perhaps follow them, or consequences of some actions. Rayhan's demon, for instance, is, even though Ramelzi actually conjured him into being, he thinks that Rayhan did, so that might play a part later. But yeah, we'll see. I'll see what I come up with, and hopefully it's interesting for the players. Alright, everybody. I'll talk to you later.